Right, and we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. And the Springbok team for the All Blacks test on Friday is out. And what a team it is. It's a very, very interesting team that has been selected by Jacques Nienaber. And lots to talk about, isn't it? There is rotation. There is certainly rotation. There are three new faces in the pack. Two new faces in the pack, and there are a lot of new faces, to put it mildly, in the back line. Kane and Moody, Martin Liebach, the only ones who've retained the spot and in the size, but Kane and Moody has made a positional change. New halfbacks across 23, a very different new look sort of bomb squad. It's a very interesting size, a lot to get through with it. There's certainly a lot of experimenting happening here. It's a lot of information that we're going to get out of this game. I think what we're sort of planning on here is probably a little bit of worst case scenario in terms of players having to play in certain positions, stuff like that, as well as getting to grips with exactly the type of combination we want to see and getting a bit of game time into a lot of players. So yeah, I think it's a perfect sort of mix of last opportunity to try a few things as well as building up momentum and getting game time into the right sort of players. So the players who have been completely rested are Damien Delendi, Jesse Creel, no Jaden Hendricks or Grant Williams this weekend. No Cheslin Colby, who's also been rested as well. So yeah, they've got the weekend off, and no Vincent Koch. But so in their place, in the front row, let's go through it, shall we? Stephen Kitsoff in the front row. Next to Malcolm Marx, Barnes Herbert. I think we've sort of probably moved. I think this for me is confirmation we've moved away from the Oxen Shea, Bongi Manambi, Vincent Koch and Franz Herbert starting and then they're being replaced. That was kind of the vibes we've had for the last couple of years. But so I think we now are moving towards Stephen Kitsoff, Malcolm Marx being too important really to be left for the second half. We're also now getting sort of 50 minutes, I think 50 to 55 minutes out of them. Stephen Kitsoff, obviously, he's a player that continues. He plays as well in the first minutes he does in the 60 minutes. Got an incredible engine for a loose head. Malcolm Marx adds a lot in the across the field as well. And given the fact that his throwing has become on leap and bounds, because basically this was 4 years ago, where he sort of lost that starting spot, and they went with Bongi Manambi, who's a bit more solid when it comes to set piece, and was using Malcolm Marx more as a sort of impact player. But yeah, in the second row, Evan Etzebeth, Franklin Moss, it is a new look combination. I think it's the right decision. Obviously, Evan was always going to come in to play against the All Blacks. I also think that Franklin Moss was really impressive for me off the bench and deserves an opportunity here. So Arcus Neyman got through 80 minutes, which he hasn't done in a long time. I think it looks like it's over 3 years since he's done 80 minutes in a Bok jersey. And he obviously is also he's back from injury and looks back to his best, but he still need to be cautious about him. The last thing we need is him breaking down. But I think the pack is pretty perfect. I think Dwayne Vermeulen coming in is a very good shout. And I think Peter Stephen and Sia Khaleesi, we also how good they were this weekend. So pack for me, 10 out of 10. Very happy with that. It's exactly the type of pack I would have liked to have seen. It is the pack I basically predicted, but my only sort of question marks were whether we're going to go with Kitsoff and Marks again, or whether we're going to leave them off the bench. But however, this backline is very interesting. Now, obviously, Marnie Box going to get another chance at 10. He needs game time. He is our number 110 for the World Cup. And he needs the game time. I don't know where people continue this whole thing of, Pollard is going to play this weekend. He's not in the squad, people. He is not in the squad. So he's not an option until there's an injury. That is how it is. He's not an option. So I don't know what. So if you're wondering where Pollard is, he's not in the flipping squad. So he's not an option. He's not available. He wasn't picked. Apparently he's back to full fitness. So Patrick Kirk was saying apparently in training, but that doesn't suddenly make him eligible for selection. So yeah, that is the situation with Pollard. Before anybody asks us or asks me what's going on, that is the situation. He is not in the squad. He is there as injury cover. But yeah, so then we've got Maxwell Pimpy, Cody Arnson coming as the two wings. Still sticking with sort of that whole idea of a short wing, tall wing, which a lot of people are saying that is now sort of the trend for our wings. And look, I think that at the end of the day, those two are not playing bad rugby at the moment, so deserve to get the opportunity. Curtly Lawrence has got a ridiculous good try scoring record, and hopefully he can add to that this weekend. The centre combination is probably the big thing that everybody's going to talk about. So first of all, Esterhuizen gets an opportunity, which I was 50-50 about whether he would. I was going to be sort of as surprised if he didn't, as if he did. Sorry, rather. So yeah, I'm happy with him to get game time. I think that a lot of people are saying that Libbok Esterhuizen sort of pivot or sort of axis is really good, which I've agreed with so far. I think we've seen them play really well with each other. So this will be another opportunity to see how well they do gel as a combination. And then in the deep end goes Caden Moody. He's never played at outside centre in his life at professional rugby. That is so we kind of knew or basically assumed that when he was picked by Jake White, I'm sorry, picked by Jacques Nienaber in the World Cup squad, as well as no other outside centre, that he would then be the other outside centre option because he played there at school, but he has never played there in professional rugby, for example. So if you look at him with the Bulls, for example, he's only come off the bench at wing. He's, I think, started one game at 15. He played a couple of games at 15, I think. But apart from that, it's been at 14. 14. If you look at the last year, for example, he had one appearance off the bench. He played 2 games at 11, and apart from that, he's just played at 14 for the Bulls. And same for South Africa, only played on the wing. So this will be his first ever opportunity in a non-wing or fullback position in professional rugby. So yeah, he has played there. As I said, he played there throughout school, played there provincially, but at the professional level has not played at 13. So it is a big bit of a risk in inverted commas. But at the end of the day, he is the other option. So we need to see if he can play there. We don't want a situation where there's an injury during a game in the World Cup, and all of a sudden he's sitting in the outside center position where he's never played there before. You do want to give him minutes, and to be fair, if there was ever a big test to do it against Rico Iwani out this weekend, because it does sound like apparently the All Blacks are set to go pretty strong this weekend. So I do expect. Look, I mean, they've got such good centers. I think that'll be a test regardless. So I like that idea. Damian Willemse, good. First of all, good to see that he's not injured, and that head clash was just a cut, and that he's free to play this weekend. Happy with him starting. Don't really mind. And then the bench, Bongi Manambi, Oxen Chair, Trevor Nyakani. Good to see Trevor Nyakani. We're back to 2 locks in the bench. We haven't seen that since the World Cup final in Jean Klein and Archer Snyman. Markham and Start is probably my only question mark in this team. I would have gone with Kwaka Smith because I think the only hole for me in this team, the only sort of problem in terms of where we could be struggling with players in a position is number 8. So if Dwayne Fermino goes down, we do not have a recognized alternative at 8. I've actually got no idea. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Marco Starden goes to the back, or Sia Khaleesi goes to the back. I don't think we'll see Pierre Steph going to the back row there. So that's probably the only sort of potential issue is if Dwayne Fermino goes down, we do not have another recognized option at 8. So that, yeah. Apart from that, Kuba's getting an opportunity. Vililu off the bench. So yeah, pretty happy. Really, we've got contingencies for almost everything except the number 8. Franco Master can move into the back into the number 7 jersey. Marco Verstappen obviously can play at 6. So we've got options there. So we've got 2 locks. So Franco Master can move into the flanks, for example. Every single player is covered in this team except for Dwayne Vermeulen. So I think that the intention is that he'll go the distance, which he's shown recently that he can. But that is the only potential banana skin we could have, is if he goes down, and then we're in a bit of trouble. For me, what will also be interesting is we are Pat de Klerk starting means it'll be interesting to see what who does the goal kicking, obviously, because Imani Libbok is being absolutely slaughtered on social media and stuff like that for his performance over the week, but off the tee. So he is, and to be fair, for a reasonable good reason. I mean, at the end of the day, he wasn't particularly good off the tee, and that is going to be a concern. So Pat de Klerk has got a very good kicking record, actually, ironically, for the Boks. So it is an area we do need to look at it. We do need to try and find a solution. But what will be interesting, as I said, will be who takes the first kick. Especially Moni Liebach, I expect them to back him. He did kick at over 70% for the entire URC. He has been very good in playoff games off the tee before, so we know he can do it. It's just whether he can. Start to sort of adapt to international rugby and the pressure of it. So I said. So the only thing is, I said, so we're looking at terms of options. Sia Khaleesi, Marco Verstappen is the other option at 8. Because Sia Khaleesi, I think, will play 50 minutes and he'll go off. And Marco Verstappen having been at 8 is a bit like saying Deon Fourie to play hooker. He can. Probably actually far less than that, because he has played at 8 before, but not a lot, and not recently either. I don't think he's played. I don't think he's worn an 8 on the back of his shirt as Marco Verstappen since before COVID. In fact, I think it's actually even further. I think you have to go back to like 2018 or 17, and he only played 1 or 2 games when there are a lot of injuries at number 8. So he really isn't a number 8. Can, again, one of those things, can play if he needs to. So that's what, as I said, I think it will be more about balanced if we had Kwagga Smith who can play 6, 7, 8. You'd have options everywhere. You'd have options at 8, genuine options at 8, out and out options at every single position. You have people who played there, who haven't played there before. Except as well for 13, I suppose, as well. There is no technically another option at 13, so Canan Moodie does kind of need to go the distance as well. So it's an interesting selection. There are a couple of players who need to put their hand up. Well, not need to put their hand up, but who need to continue building up their form, and we can get a lot of answers about some of them as well. What's interesting is that a lot of people are liking the team, which is quite cool. But let's go see down in the comments and see what everybody has to say about it. Vic saying Moody at 13 is interesting. Tim van den Berg says, don't ever recognize ASD. We're playing Moody at 13 for the first time as pro career versus the All Blacks. Let's just vibe. Then you make a very good point, Tian. You do make a very good point. And I can't wait to see who he's going to have up against him, because I'm expecting a Rico Ioane to be named. And he's not a recognised 13 as Canan Moodie, but he has played in there growing up. So I suppose Marco Verstappen, for example, is more experienced at 8 than Moodie is at 13 at this level. At professional level. So, but I'm very keen to see how he goes there. Justice says, an experimental with positions against the All Blacks. What is happening? Well, it's our last warm game, so I suppose maybe should have done it against Wales, but I don't really mind it. I suppose if you're gonna do tests and stuff like that, doing it against what is the form side of the world can be a very good way to do it. Sia says, for us when playing with New Zealand, the problem was never our backs. It has always been our forwards and who plays there. Coach needs to master who starts, which he is not doing good. Was not good at doing last time out. Contender saying we could see a Willemse Esterhazen combo with Moody go to wing second half. No, Willemse will go to the wing, I think, probably before Moody, to be honest. Moody has probably more of a 13 option than Willemse is, I would say. Brave Star saying Marnie's a confidence player. Sparrow saying they must get kicking coach to the box, with Stormers kicking coach must go to the box to help Marnie. Stefan saying I'm pretty sure Liebach will take the first kick. If he fluffs 2 in a row, then Faf will kick. I tend to agree. And Diaz says, crazy, all this happening as our last warm-up game, just hope it works. Well, I think the big thing is, that whole term of a warm-up game is that it doesn't really matter, but does it ever really not matter, for example? Adam says, Apollo been training at 100% this week. Apparently he was training 100% last week, but he's not in the squad, so he's not an option. Whiskey Boy says that I'll be at Twickenham Friday, happy with that lineup. Jesse Creel, given his good form and performance against All Blacks, would have been nice. Ryan says, I think the Mighty All Blacks will be just too much for South Africa. Go the Mighty All Blacks. Well, no surprise who's he's supporting there. As Sheldon says, straight in the deep end, but he's going to be awesome. Medit saying Willemse is likely the replacement centre with Billy coming on. Ricky Lowe saying, I love the looks of this team. The All Blacks are going to box, kick under the ball. We look very poor all of a sudden under the high ball. Hopefully sort that out. I do think that is something that we need to look at this weekend and need to try and get up on. Carlos saying, what the Boks have said between the lines here is that we don't want to injure crucial backline players in our last game, pre-World Cup. Agree Kwagga should have time. They probably want Sos to cover Thor. Werner saying, we still have no idea what our strongest 15 looks like. I disagree. Well, I think we know most of it. I think that where we don't know, I think it's a nice headache to have. I think we pretty much know who our best pack is 1 through 8. I think it is basically that pack with maybe a coin toss between Franco Master and Arceus Neyman. So I think that's more or less our best pack. Our back line, I think that obviously Delendi, Jesse Creel probably our starters. So I think the only thing, and Billy comes in at 15, the only thing we're not entirely sure is who joins Cheslin Colby in the starting lineup. For me, that's the only thing. So whether it's Caden Moody, Mapimpi, or they go with Kurt Janssen, which people are saying they won't, obviously because of the sort of the height thing, or big tall wing, short wing type thing. So I think that I do think we kind of basically do our strongest 15. I think the only question marks are which lock you start next to Etzebeth. Again, I think it's 50-50 to be honest. I think Franco Master is probably the better starter with Arceus Neyman coming off the bench, but Arceus Neyman had a fantastic starting game last week. So yeah, I think Franco Master is a better lineout operator. So from a set piece perspective early on, I think it's really useful to have him there. But Arceus Neyman showed last week that he is capable of running a lineout, which is obviously quite an important thing for us. So I think we're basically about 90% there in terms of what our best 15 is. Josh was saying Twickenham will be cooking Friday night. Lots of Safkins this side. Yeah, so if you guys have been watching the fan forum, good old Chris will be there. So keep an eye out for him. And if you do see him, go say hi. He will be there on behalf of us. So that's going to be quite cool to see him over there. Where we get you. And saying if the backline doesn't work, Estes and Moody will be blamed. I don't like it. I don't really think so, to be honest. I think people will understand that they are a little bit in the deep end there. Josh says, Stevie, what's your take on Amon Pollard? They look sad in the stands. Well, they're not part of a World Cup squad, so that's probably why they are quite sad. I think that we've made the decisions about them, so I don't like the talk that they might be coming back in. For example, I think people saying, well, why is Pollard not playing this weekend? Because he's not in the squad, and I think that's fair enough. If you're not in the squad, I don't think you should be playing because he's not in the Rugby World Cup squad at this stage, unless there is an injury, which we don't want. Then he won't be going to the World Cup. That is the situation, and that's how we must treat the situation, I think. Ryan says, Box need to win over the All Blacks as we might get them in the quarterfinals. Marshall says, awesome, we can't wait for Friday. Braystar reckons, Dwayne is starting for the high ball. Sheldon says, I think 11-14 is only 2 places that's up for grabs. Tend to agree. Elias saying, Money Liebach and his poor goal kicking will cost us the World Cup. I will blame Rassi and Jacques for that. I think that's being a little bit apocalyptic. To just assume that all of a sudden he's going to cost us the World Cup. Michelle's saying, I like the way Grant Williams looked when he came on against Wales. The pace of the game changed. I would have liked to see him start. I think Faf starting is the right decision, by the way. I think from a defensive point of view, I think he's incredibly important. And I think with this backline, I think we will kick a lot of 9, which we tend to do. And I think that Caden Moody, Andre Estes and Kurt Lawrence and Michael Pimpy Williams are going to be doing a lot of work under the high ball. So Kevin O'Neill says, just as a side, saw Steve Hansen is joining the Wallabies to help out, which is interesting. Has that been confirmed? I don't know if it's been confirmed. Has been confirmed. I was waiting to see if that was happening. Yeah, look, I'll be interested to see. I think at the end of the day, I think this 2 is. I don't think it'll make a huge amount of difference. I think it's too late to really make them competitive. But I suppose if anybody knows can add value quickly, it'll be Steve Hansen. So I'm worried about overplaying Mal Herbert. When does he rest? He doesn't need a rest. Man has just got a V8 diesel engine that just continues to tick over. Sheldon says, I'll start Mostyn, bring Arke on later when opposition legs are tied with the offloads. Joshua saying, I'll start the first 10. That first 10 is our starting team against Scotland. Probably would swap Arke for Mostyn, but I'm happy definitely saving our centre pairing. Katena says the 10, 12, 15 axis is exciting. Estes is going to most likely live up against Havili or Geordie Barrett. Moody could be up against Awani, but Fozzie might surprise and put Fainganuku at 13 with Anton Leonard Brown. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they're going to go with in the centres there. Lyle saying Arke Sam needs more starts. I don't think so. I think he's got a lot of game time under his belt, and I think he's looking pretty good. Tennis says I'm also going to be superb with Mulan as the Master More technician. Cheslin is out of the side. Not be playing this weekend. Master hasn't played one good game this season. Arke needs to start. I'll completely disagree with you. I thought Franco Master was, for me, the best bench player on Saturday. I thought he looked really, really good. He's also only played about 3 games. So yeah, I'm very happy with him starting. I think he needs the game time, and I think he's a world class player that needs a backing. And we know what Arceus Neyman did, and he looked good, and now he's going to come off the bench. Pimpy needs a big performance for Friday at last. CJ says Paul isn't playing because he isn't in the squad. He isn't in the squad because he wasn't fit. He is fit and practicing 100% now with 2 weeks before the squad is finalised. If he's left out, it's ridiculous. Well, not really. He's not played rugby since May. And so now you're going to throw him into a BOK team that hasn't had him for how many months and into the first game against Scotland. I think that would probably be more ridiculous than anything. Morris should have been called in a kicking consultant before he goes to the Lions. Nah, Lux, we know if you snooze, you lose. The Lions have got him in there, which I'm very chuffed about, by the way. Very happy to see that we actually made one good acquisition. Taz says, Steph has been amazing every game week. Jesse Creel's looking good. Honestly, he should smell it saying Morris Day, yeah, well, I think he'll get there eventually. CJ Chamberlain said, and when last did Khaleesi play rugby? Yeah, Saturday. That's why, because they basically got him ready for the Autumn Nation series, which is what they wanted to do with Andre Pollard, but Pollard wasn't ready. Pollard was on the same plan as Khaleesi. That was the plan. They had and Jacques Nienaber, go back and watch all the press conferences. Jacques Nienaber gave so many updates talking about there are specific points and where they need to get performance points and markers that they need to meet on the road to recovery. So Siya Kolisi had certain markers he had to meet. Andre Pollard had certain markers he had to meet. And Kolisi didn't miss one. He was always, in fact, they actually was ahead of his recovery the entire way through. So, for example, even that Argentina case at Emirates Airline Park, he was taking part in the warm-up. He was running around. He was actually taking a bit of contact, and that's almost a month ago. That was in July. Pollard was. I think this was last week was the first time Pollard has been in full training. Apparently, it's the first time. Well, I'm saying not apparently, it's the first time. In terms of it might have been before that, but apparently he was in full training last week, which means that would have been the first time he would have been in full training this year. For the Boks. Khaleesi's been in full training for the last month. Very, very different situations. So Khaleesi was ahead of his recovery, hit all his markers, and they then played him, and as a result, he looked good. Pollard didn't hit all his markers, was behind, and that's why he wasn't named. If he had hit all his markers, he would have been named in the World Cup squad. That's the reality. And they kept saying that they were hoping to see him. Initially, they were hoping to see him before Sia. Actually, they talked about the fact that maybe towards the end of the Rugby Championship, but hopefully for the Summer Nations, and he didn't get there. So we could talk about hypotheticals now that maybe he's fit and stuff like that, but he is very newly fit, for example, and we don't even know how his body's going to respond. So maybe he was in full training last week, which means he probably took contact twice, maybe, because not every single session in the match week is taking contact. So he maybe took contact twice. Now you got to see how their body responds. But so I don't think we need to spend every single live stream talking about Pollard. We need to actually get behind the team we've got and the players who are fit, because those are the players that we need to rely on. And there's several things which are true at the same time. Has Monie Liebach kicked well in his last 2 games? No, he hasn't. You can't try and pretend he has. You can't pretend that it is not a worry. However, let's also not, and to be honest, this is going to sound controversial. Andre Pollard is not a world-class goal kicker. He's not. Statistically, he's not. He is not a 90%er. He's actually not even an 80%er goal kicker. He has clutched up at the right times in the past, which is great, and that's why he's a World Cup winner. But he is not he has never been a goal kicking maestro, for example, like a Morné Steyn, like a Richie Wanga, for example. At the moment these days, Johnny Sexton, for example, is so good off the tee. You think about your Percy Montgomerys, you think about your world class Thomas Ramos, I think, and Emiliano Buffelli. Those are like absolute world class goal kickers. Pollard has always blown hot and cold when it comes to his goal kicking. If you go look at his stats, and it'll show you that. So, for example, if you look at his season in 22, and he's kicked pretty well in the last year, But if you look at the most World Cups, for example, the 2020 World Cup, he kicked at 74%, and in 2016, he kicked at 76%. In the British and Irish Lions series, he kicked at 68% across those 3 games. In the Premiership this season, here he is, he kicked at 80%. And in the Champions Cup, he kicked at 90% in 4 games. So he has been kicking a lot better. But, yeah, so what I'm saying, and I'm just saying, is that Pollard has never been a 90%er, for example. He's often blown hot and cold. And Marnie Liebach's got the ability to be a good goal kicker. We've seen it before, you know. So we talked about the fact that Andre Pollard was at 74% in the World Cup a few years ago. Marnie Liebach, for example, in the URC, which is a much longer competition, I think this year was at 70%. 76% was at this year for the URC. So, yeah, we know that he can do it. It's just about doing it at the right times under pressure, and you're only going to get that by playing him. You're only going to build him up as an international fly half by giving him game time, putting him in these positions and letting him make the mistakes. And if you're not willing to let people make mistakes, then we're going to bury a lot of careers before they even start. At the end of the day, Canan Moodie has made mistakes as well. He was probably guilty for that first Australia try back in the start of the Rugby Championship. Look what he's doing now. Players will always make mistakes. You know, players will always blow hot and cold. And so especially players who are getting into international rugby, some players take to it like a duck to water. Canan Moodie has not looked back since he started. He's played phenomenally well. He's been looked so good, and that's great. Some players do take a bit longer to adjust to international rugby and go on to be world-class players. That's kind of how it works. But unless you are willing to really back a player and say, we are behind you, we back you, they're never going to fulfill their potential. Marnie Liebach can be a great Test 10. There's no doubt. I have no doubt about that in my mind that he can be a great Test 10. He's already got try assists. I don't think Marnie Liebach has actually lost a match for the Springboks, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he's got a 100% winning rate at the moment because he didn't play the All Black game, which is the only game he lost this year, actually. So let's look at it overall, shall we? In the box, a little bit out of date. I want to look at his overall stats. There we go. Rugby Championship. What did he come on against New Zealand? But he's never. Yeah, I think so. I think he's lost 1 game in his Test career so far. So yeah, I think that, and never lost a game while starting, by the way, which is pretty cool for him. So yeah, he's got potential. He's coming into the World Cup. Was he supposed to be starting number 10? No, he wasn't. That was never the plan. A year ago, if you said that Marnie Liebach was going to be our starting number 10, he hadn't even played for the Boks yet a year ago. He wasn't even in the squad. So it was not part of the plan. Plans don't always go part of the plan, and at the end of the day, it's not like any of us, it's not like the majority of the Bok public ever really backed Alton Yankees as well. So how about we actually just get behind our 10 and back him? So, and again, a lot of people are saying, well, he doesn't have to necessarily kick for poles, which he doesn't. So if After Clerk, for example, decides, he's actually going to take more ownership and he's going to say, right, actually, you know what? Marnie's struggling a little bit. I'm going to put my hand up and say, I'm here. I'm ready. I can kick for goals, and I'm happy to put in the hours to make myself a genuine option if that helps the team. And maybe that's exactly what does need to happen. Marnie misses 2 kicks if After Clerk steps up. And he's actually got a really good high percentage for the Boks. He hasn't kicked as much as a Liebach, for example. But, that maybe, and that becomes a situation. As we know, you don't have to be the 10 to kick. And so maybe that might change. And I suppose it's it is sort of give and take. You do have to have a good goal kicker. There's no doubt about that. That point is we know this. We know that you have to have a strong goal kicker, and that is an issue at the moment. But Moin Liebach is a starting 10, Pollard's not on the squad. So what are the options here? That is what we've got to decide. Damien Willemse at 10. And goal kicking. Damien Willemse has never been a particularly good goal kicker. It's why I think it's contributed towards him not playing at 10 as much. Phenomenal fullback. I think he's brilliant at inside centre. But he's also not a natural goal kicker. So whether that's an issue from South Africa, the fact that maybe we as a country we're not producing enough good goal kickers, that conversation can actually take place. And I think there is a certain amount of case. I think there's a certain amount of, we are starting to change as a bit of a nation. We're seeing so many fly halves and players coming up with skill sets that players 10 years ago didn't have. But the goal kicking seems to be a bit on the downward trend. And I suppose, if you're a school kid, for example, do you want to spend your time kicking for goals after practice? Do you want to spend your time working on your goose step and your skill set and your quick offload and stuff like that? And that probably does play into it as well. I think that, as I said, we've got a whole brand new generation of new fly halves and players with phenomenal skill sets. And in the past, we've actually often never backed and been quick to criticize any attacking fly halves we've had. And that's kind of, I think, led to, and a lot of coaches haven't really backed attacking fly halves either, which is why everybody's, we got that reputation of boring rugby because we used to kick off 10. We used to have very solid, decent goal kickers at 10 and solid fly halves who weren't that fancy. You think of a Butch James, you think of a Andre Pollard, you think of a Morne Steyn, for example. Those are, some of the fly halves in the past. Not players who would always would light the world alight with their skill set and their attacking ability, but very solid kickers and very solid defenders, for example. And now we're seeing a new generation, players like Martin Liebach, very different type of player. Players like a Johnny Lombard, Jordan Hendricks, Kate Voliter coming through. Even a Sasha Femi Gomazulu, he's a pretty good goalkeeper himself. We're seeing a different sort of type of fly-off coming through, and we need to decide what we want to have. Do we want to have, and it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. I'm not saying that any player who's a good attacking fly is not a good goal kicker. Ironically, Alton Yankees is actually one of the best goal kickers of the last 10 years from a percentage point of view. But there sometimes will be trade-offs. So sometimes you want the attacking player that'll come with, well, maybe he's not as good a defender. Maybe he's not as good as a goal kicker. And the question is, how do we then compensate for that? If we're gaining on the goal kicking and we're losing on the attack, how do we add some more attack to that? If we're losing on the attack but we're gaining a goal kicker, how do we compensate for that loss of attack? Where does that happen? And that's what the coaching staff have to do. They have to make those big, brave decisions, which are not always popular decisions either, and find the balance and find a way to try and tick as many boxes as possible going into a game. And that's difficult. It's not an easy task. And sometimes it's impossible to do. Sometimes there will always be something you have to sacrifice or something you have to be willing to give up. And that's what we've got to try and get through now. That's kind of the problem that we're now facing. So I think we'll get it right. I think we still got a bit of time to sort of sort things out. I don't think we need to be panicking just yet. For example, Moneybook could go on Saturday and kick 5 from 5, and maybe we're all going, oh, cool, we'll be happy. So yeah, it is, as I said, we know it's a problem. It's not something we're going to ignore. But in the situation we've got right now, we've really got to get behind the players because, as I said, it wasn't part of the plan, but this is now the new plan, and we've got to get behind the new plan because we don't have an alternative, really. So as I said, you can either get apocalyptic and you throw your hands up in the air and say that's it, or we can say, well, you know what, this is the situation, but let's get behind him, let's back him, and hope he comes through. And if he does come through, then maybe we win another World Cup. You never know. But a lot of it's speculation. So to go and say, for example, that he's going to lose the World Cup, I think that's a really, really poor way of looking at it. I think that's far too reactionary, and I think that's I just don't think there's any point in doing that. But yeah, some of the comments making over here say Malcolm says attacking fly creates tries and the probability of a bigger margin where one kick won't be the decider. Stefan says number 10 is the key position. Liebach is the best we have right now. Julia's saying at the end of the day, we have to trust in the players and the coaching staff. They know more than we do as supporters, and we have a great team. I also think at the end of the day, it's our World Cup, and I love speculating. We all love creating our own squads, deciding what would work, what won't work. But now it's World Cup time. Now the squads have been made. So now we've got two options. You can hate the team, be negative about the team and stuff, or you can really enjoy it, get behind it, and say, right, I'm now settled in. Every player's got my backing. Let's move. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean you can't discuss teams and you can't say what your preferences are and stuff, but it's now the time to really get behind players and to really get behind the team. In years in between World Cups and stuff, when we're doing experimenting, yeah, sure, by all means, go and say, I think we should be doing this. I think we should be doing that. I'm not convinced about him. But now, these are the players who will be taking on the World Cup. That's not going to change unless there are injuries. And it becomes a bit boring if you just sort of sit there complaining about how crap everybody is, when they're not. Really, at the end of the day, they've lost one game this year. And they've had a subpar performance against Argentina, and a pretty good performance against Argentina, I think, in Argentina, and then a pretty good performance against Wales. So I don't think we need to be panicking here. We were pretty poor for 30 minutes against the All Blacks, and then we're pretty good against them. So I think that generally our build-up's gone pretty well. This is the last piece of the puzzle, isn't it, with regards to making sure that we are ready to go come the first game against Scotland. So that is kind of the situation, and hopefully we get the win on Friday. But in closing here, and in starting to wrap up, what I would like to tell you, everybody, is that I want a Joburg check-in. I want anybody who's from Joburg to please jump in the comments, let me know if you're in Joburg. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is because I am very excited to announce that come the 10th of September, we will be having a Forever Sports fan park. That is right. That is correct. There will be a live venue for the Springbok game for Forever Sports come 10th of September. It is very exciting, and it is going to be held at the Kyalami Country Club, which is up over here in sort of Midrand area in the north of Joburg, and it's going to be a live fan park. And what that means is that it's going to be obviously all you guys in the comments and in the watch-along views, and we're hoping to pull some big watch-along views, so I hope you guys are all ready to jump on and throw your support. But we're going to have a live audience as well, and that means that for the first time ever, we are going to be having a live broadcast, a live on-location broadcast, not on location in terms of the stadium, but a on-location broadcast. It's going to be at Kyalami Country Club, and I'm so excited. I mean, we're starting to do the planning for it. But we're talking about live panels, a live panel show, for example, in person. So, for example, your Reezers, your Marks, those likes. And then we're going to have a live panel, in-person panel. I'll be part of the panel as well. We're going to have, we're going to have crossings there. Then obviously we're going to have the watch along, where we're going to actually have a little video of Fan Park in the actual video. So all the reactions of the fans and stuff celebrating will actually become part of the watch along. So that is the plan. We're then going to be doing fan interviews on the day. So like the fan cams, we're going to be doing fan cams with people on the day. We're going to be having giveaways. And the best thing is completely free. It will not cost you a cent apart from your beer bill, your food bill. But it's completely free to come to. And we've got two I think they're 85-inch screens, which the rugby will be on. Two different screens, two different setups, for example. And we're hoping to have giveaways. We're hoping to have some Springbok shots flying around. We're going to be running a lot of competitions. It's going to be very, very vibey. I'm very excited about it, putting a lot of effort, a lot of planning into it. And I really hope that that's going to be a really big addition to our World Cup coverage. So some people have been asking over the years, should we have a meetup and stuff like that? This is kind of the first bridge towards that. So on the 10th of September against Scotland, we will be broadcasting live out of Kyalami Country Club at the official Forever Sports fan park. Really, really hope some of you guys can come through. If you do, please come and introduce yourselves. There's so many people in the comments that we see on a week-to-week basis. It'll be so cool to actually meet people. If you're going to any games in France, I've already had somebody a couple of people have mailed me to say they're going to certain games. So we will hopefully also be doing some meetups over in France. But this will be the first live in-person Forever Sports event we've ever done. And it's going to be very, very cool. As I said, yeah, we're talking. I'm trying to sort of not give away too much, but another thing I needed to give away. But yeah, live panels, the watch along out of there, the fan cam there. It's gonna be absolutely epic. A lot of Springbok shots going, lots of beer being drunk. The restaurant's really good, makes some fantastic pizza. Very well priced pizza as well. So yeah, obviously we'll be putting up a poster on the community tab, and we'll be punting it a bit more over a few weeks to make sure that everybody who is in Johannesburg will know about it. But put it in your calendar, 10th September, Kalami Country Club, the official Forever Sports fan park, will be in operation, and hopefully we'll see some of you guys there. If not, then we'll see the rest of you guys on the watch along. And so Friday, in terms of Friday. Also pretty cool from Friday is that we will hopefully be doing live crossings to Twickenham with our guy on the ground, girl Chris. The watch along will probably go live at about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It actually might be a bit of a panel, in-person panel as well. We might be sort of trialing it all for this weekend, so that'll be quite cool to try and do. So yeah, and the idea is that if we can nail this fan park, to then take it on tours. Then go and say, right, for next year, the incoming tour, where can we go? And maybe try and set up a fan park in the different cities. Go and do a Cape Town edition, a Durban edition, a Bloemfontein edition, a Gqeberha edition. We can go to Pretoria. We can go to, all over the country. We can go on a bit of a tour. And then, long term, absolutely love to do an international one. Would absolutely love to go over to overseas and do sort of fan park stuff over there. So that is the idea. So this is the first step. Akila says, in 4AC at the fan park, that's what I'd like to see. Well, there we go. So he said we can go meet all the people. We've got lots of fans coming, so we're looking to get a couple, almost could be well over 100 people there. It's going to be very lively. I think it's going to be the best way to watch the Bok game at the end of the day. So hopefully we'll see you guys all there. That is up for us. The presser is uploading, so you can go and all the questions you've posed me has potentially been answered by Jacques Nielba in the press conference, so you can go and check that out. But apart from that, I will see you guys tomorrow for Rugby News Live. And obviously the press conference coming up and lots of content coming throughout the day. I've done 5 things to learn from the SA versus Wales game, which will be out tomorrow. And obviously then we'll have a lot of build-up coming for this weekend, as well as a how-to-watch video for this weekend, because it's not an Summer Nations game, so it'll not be available on Prime, but we have done a video on how to watch all the action on Friday. So hopefully everybody will be sorted to be able to watch the game there. People, please do smash like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We are just over 200 people away from 37,000 subscribers. We're pretty cool if we could get there before the weekend. And so if you are new to the channel and you haven't already, please do subscribe, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.